Let's begin with a question. How do you feel about the law? I would guess the question conjures up different thoughts and feelings in different people. And as with many of these esoteric subjects that I'm presenting, there are many rabbit holes that can be explored. The overall topic of this series is the Law of One. I hope the previous Law of One intro and overview were helpful. This video is on the various components that comprise law in general and the Law of One in particular. I hope that you will seriously consider that there are various categories and levels of law, and you make conscious decisions on what categories and levels of law or laws you abide by. I surmise and submit that your level of agreement in harmonizing with the various levels of laws determines the levels of return on the investment from the goals of those laws, at least for the ones you know. And I've put definitions and sources as links in the description. Okay, let's go.
As you likely know, there are laws that are created by man, and then there are laws that are given from sources that are supposedly other than man.
And these laws also pertain to man. But there are some laws that were the laws of the gods that have also become laws of man. And there are other laws that, are seemingly higher than the laws of the gods, so to speak. Are these all laws that we should be following? I'll proceed from the point of orthodoxy, academia, and religion to start. Also, please keep in mind that the great libraries of Africa and South America were looted and said to be burned by the Romans and Europeans, so we don't have those histories and perspectives. The earliest law is the Code of Hammurabi. Wait, scratch that. The oldest written laws, based on academia, is the Code of Urnamu. Wikipedia dates them back to 2100 to 2050 BCE. Already this subject takes me to a rabbit hole that I must quickly digress to. Back in 1990, just after I completed my class in metaphysics with Dr. Delbert Blair, I was led to a set of books by a caller on Chicago Black radio station WVON while they were interviewing Dr. Blair. That caller said if we really wanted to get to some WOT or way out there stuff, that we should read The 12th Planet by Zecharia Sitchin. Sitchin is credited with popularizing the understanding of the Annunaki and their impact on Earth's situation today. I highly recommend the Earth Chronicles books for your journey, but they are not an easy read by any stretch of the imagination. Anyway, in his book, The 12th Planet, chapter The Sudden Civilization on page 42, Zecharia Sitchin puts the Urnamu codes at 2350 BCE, and he adds that there was another set of codes after that, but before Hammurabi by Lapidishtar. I have to ride with Sitchin on this based on his scholarship. I've put a link to Sitchin's work in the description for those interested. Based on Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, the Code of Urnamu is the oldest known surviving law code. It is from Mesopotamia and is written on tablets in the Sumerian language circa 2100 to 2050 BCE. It contains strong statements of royal power like, "I eliminated enmity, violence, and cries for justice." The code reveals a glimpse at societal structure during Ir's third dynasty. Some examples of the surviving laws are: 1. If a man commits a murder, that man must be killed. 2. If a man commits a robbery, he will be killed. 5. If a slave marries a native, i.e. free person, she is to hand the firstborn son over to his owner. 20. If a man in the course of a scuffle smash the limb of another man with a club, he shall pay 1 mina of silver. 30. If a man stealthily cultivates the field of another man, and he raises a complaint, this is, however, to be rejected, and this man will lose his expenses. These laws obviously deal with very serious situations and punishments. As you know, some punishments have been deemed unacceptable in most of today's legal systems. Next, based on academia, Wikipedia, would be the codes of Hammurabi, except my research turned up laws I had never heard about that are recorded as coming before the codes of Hammurabi. This unexpected formulation of law came from Egypt in around 2375 to 2350 BC. These laws are the maxims of Ptahhotep, or Instructions of Ptahhotep. The Maxims of Ptahhotep, or Instruction of Ptahhotep, is an ancient Egyptian literary composition by the Vizier Ptahhotep around 2375 to 2350 BC during the rule of King Djedkare-Sesi of the 5th dynasty. The text was discovered in Thebes in 1847 by Egyptologist M. Prisa Deven. The Instructions of Ptahhotep are considered didactic wisdom literature belonging to the genre of Sebite. The Instructions of Ptahhotep addresses various virtues that are necessary to live a good life and how to live accordingly to Ma'at, which was an important part of the Egyptian culture. The instructions consisted of various themes, one of which was leadership. For example, prose numbered 9.1. If you are a leader, take responsibility in the matters entrusted to you, and you will accomplish things of note. Prose 9.5 states, if you are a man of authority, be patient when you are listening to the words of a petitioner. Do not dismiss him until he has completely unburdened himself of what he had planned to say to you. Also, I researched my library of Egyptian books, and just as it looked like I would not find any correspondence, I reviewed my book titled Ancient Egypt, Its Culture and History by J.E. Manship White. In the chapter The Aristocrat on page 50, it states, several viziers were worshipped as gods by later generations. They include the Old Kingdom sages Kagemni and Ptahhotep, to whom were attributed celebrated collections of wise sayings. Prose 9.5 raised a memory of a law from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, or Jehuti. In chapter 3, The Key of Wisdom, it states, if one cometh to thee for counsel, let him speak freely, that the thing for which he hath come to thee may be done. If he hesitates to open his heart to thee, it is because thou, the judge, doeth the wrong. And I thank Spirit for leading me back to this, which I feel is a revelation for me, as I have finally been able to lace in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, or Jehuti, which I was told is the name he prefers. Now, the next set of laws based on Academia Wikipedia would finally be the Codes of Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi is a Babylonian legal text composed during 1755 to 1750 BC. By the way, Sitchin puts these codes at 1900 BC. It is the longest, best organized, and best preserved legal text from the ancient Near East. It is written in the Old Babylonian dialect of Akkadian, purportedly by Hammurabi, 6th king of the 1st dynasty of Babylon. The primary copy of the text is inscribed on a basalt stele, 2.25 meters, 7 feet 4.5 inches tall. The top of the stele features an image and relief of Hammurabi with Shamash, the Babylonian sun god and god of justice. Below the relief are about 4,130 lines of cuneiform text. 1/5 contains a prologue and epilogue in poetic style, while the remaining 4/5 contain what are generally called the laws. In the prologue, Hammurabi claims to have been granted his rule by the gods to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak. The laws are casuistic, expressed as if-then conditional sentences. Their scope is broad, including, for example, criminal law, family law, property law, and commercial law. Legal areas consist of the following. First, offenses against the administration of law. Second, property offenses. Third, land and houses. 4, commerce. 5, marriage, family, and property. 6, assaults. 7, professional men. 8, agriculture. 9, rates of hire. 10, slaves. Some examples of the Code of Hammurabi follow. 1. If a man weave a spell and put a ban upon a man, and has not justified himself, he that wove the spell upon him shall be put to death. 6. If a man has stolen the goods of temple or palace, that man shall be killed, and he who has received the stolen thing from his hand shall be put to death. 25. If in a man's house a fire has been kindled, and a man who has come to extinguish the fire has lifted up his eyes to the property of the owner of the house, and has taken the property of the owner of the house, that man shall be thrown into that fire. 49. If a man has taken money from a merchant and has given to the merchant a field planted with corn or sesame, and said to him, cultivate the field, reap and take for thyself the corn and sesame which there is. If the cultivator causes to grow corn or sesame in the field, at the time of harvest the owner of the field forsooth shall take the corn or sesame which is in the field, and shall give corn for the money which he took from the merchant, and for its interest, and for the dwelling of the cultivator to the merchant. 128th. If a man has married a wife and has not laid down her bonds, that woman is no wife. 154. If a man has known his daughter, that man one shall expel from the city. Next up from the time frame of Western academia is the Papyrus of Ani, Papyrus of Ani 6550, which includes the Doctrine of Mat. The Doctrine of Mat is represented in the Declarations to Recti Merti Fen Mat and the 42 negative confessions listed in the Papyrus of Ani. The following are translations by E. A. Wallace Budge. The negative confessions one would make after death could be individualized, that is, vary from person to person. Based on the book The Coming Forth by Day, or also called the Egyptian Book of the dead person was to go through a ceremony called the weighing of the heart, where the heart of the deceased person was weighed against the weight of a feather. If the heart's weight was heavier than the weight of the feather, the deceased would be devoured. If it was not heavier, the deceased would be admitted as the Osiris into the fields of Amenti. Here you can see there are codes or laws that specifically pertain to how God must be treated. These were some of the confessions found in the Papyrus of Ani. 1. Hail Usik Nemt, who comest forth from Anu, I have not committed sin. 4th, Hail Amchibet, who comest forth from Kernet, I have not slain men and women. 7. Hail Arphiam Ket, who comest forth from Suat, I have not stolen the property of God. 8. Hail Nebo, who comest and goest, I have not uttered lies. 10th, Hail Utunasert, who comest forth from Hetkaptah, I have not uttered curses. 11th, Hail Cherti, who comest forth from Amentet, I have not committed adultery. 20. Hail Tutu, who comest forth from Ati, I have not debauched the wife of any man. 27. Hail Kenemti, who comest forth from Kenmet, I have not blasphemed. And 37th, Hail Uachrakit, who comest forth from Sau, I have not cursed God. The next set of laws would be from the Christian Bible. They, as you know, are the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are religious and ethical directives structured as a covenant document that, according to the Hebrew Bible, are given by YHWH to Moses. The text of the 10 Commandments was dynamic in ancient Israel and appears in 3 markedly distinct versions in the Bible: at Exodus 22-17, Deuteronomy 5:6-21, and the ritual Decalogue of Exodus 34:11-26. According to the book of Exodus in the Torah, the 10 Commandments were revealed to Moses at Mount Sinai, told by Moses to the Israelites in Exodus 19:25, and inscribed by the finger of God on 2 tablets of stone. Scholars disagree about when the 10 Commandments were written and by whom, with some modern scholars drawing comparisons between the Decalogue and Hittite and Mesopotamian laws and treaties, commandments, text, and numbering, religious traditions. Although both the Masoretic text and the Dead Sea Scrolls have the passages of Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5 divided into 10 specific commandments, formatted with space between them, corresponding to the Lutheran counting in the chart below, many modern English Bible translations give the appearance of more than 10 imperative statements in each passage. Different religious traditions categorize the 17 verses of Exodus 21 through 17 and their parallels in Deuteronomy 5:4 through 21 into 10 commandments in different ways as shown in the table. Some suggest that the number 10 is a choice to aid memorization rather than a matter of theology. The 10 Commandments. Commandment, KJV. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. And thou shalt not desire thy neighbor's house. And thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, or his slaves, or his animals, or anything of thy neighbor. You shall set up these stones which I command you today on Mount Argerizim.
Law of One is not considered to be in any of these previous perspectives. There are some other laws that seem not to be written by man. One could say they are subcomponents of the Law of One, though they are not specifically called out in the raw material as such. Also, I have not found the original source of these laws, as they seem to be timeless. They prove or support the Law of One, so to speak. They are the universal laws and the Hermetic laws or principles. These are immutable laws, unlike the laws of man, which are subject to change as man discovers more about what is called our reality. These laws are a lower part of the overall Law of One. There have been many other breakdowns of these laws. Unfortunately, I cannot vouch for all these breakdowns, as I have not focused enough attention on getting that information. So I can only give you what I believe to be the truth, or what has come to be my truth at least.
Let's begin with the 5 universal laws or principles that seem immutable, and as such are agreed to be of the one infinite creator. Universal laws. 1. The law principle of attraction. Things of like vibration attracts things of like vibration. 2nd law principle of action. Action begets action. 3. The law principle of perpetual transmutation. Change begets change. Resistance is futile. The law principle of compensation. One reaps what one sows. 5. The law principle of relativity. Every action is related to every other action. And then there are the 7 Hermetic laws or principles. There is a Hermetic principle that correlates these understandings. It is called all is mind. Everything that we sense comes through our sensory organs into our brain or mind. The brain then presents the appropriate understanding to our conscious mind to help determine our next activity. Hermetic laws or principles. 1. The law principle of mentalism. All is mind. 2. The law principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. 3. The law principle of vibration. All is in motion. The law principle of polarity. Everything has an opposite. 5. The law principle of rhythm. All is a cycle. 6. The law principle of cause and effect. Every action causes a reaction. And 7. The law principle of gender. All things have feminine and masculine characteristics.
By the way, if and when you read or listen to the Law of One, the raw material, they will not usually describe these as laws. In the Law of One, there's only one law. All is one. They describe all the laws or principles under the Law of One as distortions of the Law of One.
The Law of One. Now, I can finally get to those higher laws, or distortions as Ra calls them, in the Law of One material that I mentioned at the outset of this video. The Law of One laws listed below will be reviewed in this order. The Law of Confusion, or the Law of Free Will, the Veil of Forgetting, the Law of Responsibility, the Law of Love, the Law of Light, the Law of Foreeverness. As these are very esoteric subjects, I have decided to share the actual channelings, as I think they will more accurately describe and define the Law of One laws better than I can. I will preface each law with a bit of commentary. To quickly reiterate, the Law of One is a channeling by 3 spiritual researchers with what is called a social memory complex named Ra that we defined and described in the prior video. There is a questioner, which is one of the 3 researchers, and the spiritual being is coming through one of the other researchers. The 3rd researcher is a scribe for the sessions, which totaled 106. The number references the session in question in the Law of One, the raw material books and videos. And Ra always identifies itself prior to each question to ensure the group that the correct contact is coming through. The Law of Confusion, or the Law of Free Will. We begin to get details on the Law of One after a question about the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
3.14 Questioner. This is slightly trivial, but I was wondering why, in that case, the pyramid was made of many blocks rather than the whole thing being created at once.
Ra.
I am Ra. There is a law which we believe to be one of the more significant primal distortions of the Law of One. That is the Law of Confusion. You have called this the Law of Free Will. We wish to make an healing machine, or time/space ratio complex, which was as efficacious as possible. However, we did not desire to allow the mystery to be penetrated by the peoples in such a way that we became worshipped as builders of a miraculous pyramid. Thus, it appears to be made, not thought.
It was meant to be perceived as being made, not thought. Additional information of the Law of One came in the next session after a question about learning about how to heal ailing persons.
4.19 Questioner. Then would this training program involve specific things to do, specific instructions and exercises?
Ra, I am Ra. We are not at this time incarnate among your peoples. Thus, we can guide and attempt to specify, but cannot by example show. This is an handicap. However, there should indeed be fairly specific exercises of mind, body, and spirit during the teach-ka learning process we offer. It is to be once again iterated that healing is but one distortion of the Law of One. To reach an undistorted understanding of that law, it is not necessary to heal or, indeed, to show any manifestation, but only to exercise the disciplines of understanding.
4.20 Questioner. My objective is primarily to discover more of the Law of One, and it would be very helpful to discover techniques of healing. I am aware of your problem with respect to free will. You cannot make suggestions, so I will ask you if you can state the Law of One and the laws of healing to me.
Ra, I am Ra. The Law of One, though beyond the limitations of name, as you call vibratory sound complexes, may be approximated by stating that all things are one, that there is no polarity, no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. All is one, and that one is love, light, love, the infinite creator. One of the primal distortions of the Law of One is that of healing. Healing occurs when a mind-body-spirit complex realizes, deep within itself, the Law of One, that is, that there is no disharmony, no imperfection, that all is complete and whole and perfect. Thus, the intelligent infinity within this mind-all-body-spirit complex reforms the illusion of body, mind, or spirit to a form congruent with the Law of One. The healer acts as energizer or catalyst for this completely individual process. One item which may be of interest is that a healer asking to learn must take the distortion understood as responsibility for that ask, age, and receiving, thus healing. This is an honor, duty, which must be carefully considered in free will before the asking.
Lesser laws are described as distortions. They can also be labeled as ways. The law or way of love is mentioned here with some specifics on the law of free will. By the way, you may know that whether we have free will is a big topic in the scientific community now.
Pattam Padinirandam questioner. Then, although many entities are not aware of this, what they really desire is to accelerate their growth, and it is their job to discover this while incarnate. Is it correct that they can accelerate their growth much more while incarnate in third density than in between incarnations of this density?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. We shall attempt to speak upon this concept. The Law of One has, as one of its primal distortions, the free will distortion. Thus, each entity is free to accept, reject, or ignore the mind-body-spirit complexes about it and ignore the creation itself. There are many among your social memory, complex distortion who, at this time war space, engage daily, as you would put it, in the working upon the Law of One in one of its primal distortions, that is, the ways of love.
15.21 Questioner. Well, in yesterday's material you stated, we offer the Law of One, the solving of paradoxes. You also mentioned earlier that the first paradox, or the first distortion I meant, was the distortion of free will. Could you tell me if there's a sequence? Is there a first, second, third, fourth distortion of the Law of One?
I am Ra, only up to a very short point. After this point, the manyness of distortions are equal one to another. The first distortion, free will, finds focus. This is the second distortion known to you as Logos, the creative principle, or love. This intelligent energy thus creates a distortion known as light. From these three distortions come many hierarchies of distortions, each having its own paradoxes to be synthesized, no one being more important than another.
Part of the law of free will is not to infringe upon anyone else's free will.
Channeling. Conscious. Channeling. 2010. October 16th, 2010. And in each density, each experience, each day, and each hour, you are responsible for yourself, for your choices, for your intentions, and for your desires. It is expected of you and built into the nature that is called human nature that you shall desire things. And you are given not simply permission, but encouragement to experience those things which you desire, as long as they do not infringe upon the free will of another. For it is in experiencing those things which you desire that you become aware of what you truly desire, what you desire at a level that is deeper than the level of impulse, fad, and fashion.
It's called the veil or the law of forgetting. Before we were born, our memories of our prior existence were veiled, and we must forget that we are spirit beings here to have a human experience. And it makes sense, because why would you strive to make these improvements in yourself if you knew you would one day go back to your spirit life? Part of that striving is to remember that you are a powerful spirit being and that you are here to improve your beingness in a way that you and your soul or higher self or oversoul decided before you incarnated this time or reincarnated. Your soul or higher self or oversoul is here to provide you with the various types of catalysts to steer you into lifting the veil of forgetting and to work toward the spirit self-improvement that you decided to come here to do. And you picked a doozy, Earth, at the end of a major cycle. Probably a next video subject, we'll see. Remember earlier I said my spiritual ascension has come in steps and stages. Well, since everything is one thing, in order to grow physically and spiritually, there are steps and stages. One must start and progress to the next level, so to speak. So let's go back a minute to the veil of forgetting. The veil of forgetting only happens in a reality like the one we are currently in on Earth. It is because it is a school of sorts. Some have likened it to a prison. It's all a matter of perspective, your perspective, and that drives your reality. What happens to you while you're here on Earth during this incarnation? As you progress, you will become closer to realizing that you are the one infinite creator. Those divisions of labor I referred to earlier are also the steps and stages I referred to earlier. If you were to fully lift your veil of forgetting during this incarnation, you would reach enlightenment, and you would leave and go to another step or stage of existence, for example, the Buddha or the Christ. But the overall goal of the one infinite creator is for all of humanity to polarize in one direction, and all would ascend together, somewhat as it is described in the Bible. And there are consequences to not remembering and not being able to lift the veil. We'll discuss this in a later video. Under the law of responsibility, you get a little time to try and remember that you came here for a reason. This information discusses lifespan and then gets into the law of responsibility. I will be discussing the cycles in the next video.
22.3 Questioner. Thank you. I'll ask a couple of questions to clear up the end of the second cycle, the second major cycle, and then we'll go on to the third and last of the major cycles. Can you tell me the lifespan, the average lifespan, at the end of the second major cycle?
Ra, I am Ra. By the end of the second major cycle, the lifespan was as you know it, with certain variations among geographically isolated peoples more in harmony with intelligent energy and less bellicose.
22.4 Questioner. Can you tell me the length of that average span in years at the end of the second major cycle?
Ra, I am Ra. The average is perhaps misleading. To be precise, many spent approximately 35 to 40 of your years in one incarnation, with the possibility not considered abnormal of a lifespan approaching 100 of your years.
22.5 Questioner. Then can I assume then that this drastic drop from 700-year lifespan to one less than 100 years in length during this second 25,000-year period was because of an intensification of a condition of lack of service to others? Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is, in part, correct. By the end of the second cycle, the law of responsibility had begun to be effectuated by the increasing ability of entities to grasp those lessons which there are to be learned in this density. Thus, entities had discovered many ways to indicate a bellicose nature, not only as tribes, or what you call nations, but in personal relationships, each with the other. The concept of barter having given way in many cases to the concept of money. Also, the concept of ownership having won ascendancy over the concept of non-ownership on an individual or group basis. Each entity, then, was offered many more subtle ways of demonstrating either service towards others or service to self, with the distortion of the manipulation of others. As each lesson was understood, those lessons of sharing, of giving, of receiving in free gratitude, each lesson could be rejected in practice. Without demonstrating the fruits of such learned teaching, the lifespan became greatly reduced, for the ways of honor or duty were not being accepted.
22.6 Questioner. Would this shortened lifespan help the entity in any way, in that he would have more times in between incarnations to review his mistakes? Or would this shortened lifespan hinder him?
Ra, I am Ra. Both are correct. The shortening of the lifespan is a distortion of the law of one, which suggests that an entity not receive more experience in more intensity than it may bear. This is only in effect upon an individual level and does not hold sway over planetary or social complexes. Thus, the shortened lifespan is due to the necessity for removing an entity from the intensity of experience which ensues when wisdom and love are, having been rejected, reflected back into the consciousness of the Creator without being accepted as part of the self, this then causing the entity to have the need for healing and for much evaluation of the incarnation. The incorrectness lies in the truth that, given appropriate circumstances, a much longer incarnation in your space-time continuum is very helpful for continuing this intensive work until conclusions have been reached through the catalytic process.
In the following Law of Responsibility discussion, the accumulation of love within the channeling group is mentioned.
Channeling Conscious Channeling, 1982, July 18, 1982. Carla. Well, to clarify then, what you're basically correcting is my assumption that because these people are not physically present at Raw sessions, they are not part of the Raw sessions. What you're saying is, everyone in this living room, in this meeting, because of the fact that we love each other, we are the Raw group, all of us. Is this what you're trying to tell me? Because the reality seen in terms of light is metaphysical, not physical. Is that correct? Latsui, I am Latsui. My sister, this is correct. You have within this group a family of light beings, and each, therefore, has the opportunity to accelerate its polarity and its evolution by means of the utilization of the information generated in these meditations and in the meditations which have resulted in the Raw contact. Therefore, the law of responsibility holds sway, so that where the opportunity to accelerate evolution upon the positive path comes into being, there must also be the balancing opportunity for the entity to choose the opposite path.
This reference again suggests that to whom much is given, much is expected.
101.8 Questioner. Thank you. Could Ra give information on any way that we could give information to Greta Woodrue as to how to alleviate her present condition of swelling? Ra, I am Ra. We may only suggest that the honor of propinquity to light carries with it the law of responsibility, the duty to refrain from contumely, discord, and all things which, when unresolved within, make way for workings lies before the instrument of which you speak. This entity may, if it is desired by the scribe, share our comments upon the working of the latter entity. The entity which is given constant and unremitting approval by those surrounding it suffers from the loss of the mirroring effect of those which reflect truthfully rather than unquestioningly. This is not a suggestion to reinstate judgment, but merely a suggestion for all those supporting instruments, that is, support, be harmonious, share in love, joy, and thanksgiving. But find love within truth, for each instrument benefits from this support more than from the total admiration which overcomes discrimination. Channeling Conscious Channeling, 1996, April 7th, 1996. Questioner. Yes, Qwo. Could you describe please the law of responsibility? How does inaudible that all, inaudible on a spiritual inaudible? Quo I am Quo, and I am aware of your query, my brother. Each seeker in the process of seeking will find those resources that are of assistance in the revealing of the heart of love and the nature of truth to the seeker. As the seeker becomes aware of more principles, shall we say, that are applicable to the life pattern, the seeker has the responsibility of utilizing these resources in the service to others and in the enhancing of the life pattern. If the seeker is unable or unwilling to use that which it has learned, then it will find greater difficulty in its future seeking in discovering further principles and resources that will assist in this process. Thus, the law of responsibility simply asks each seeker to use that which is learned to the best of its ability in the life pattern, in revealing love to self, love for self, love to others, love for others. Channeling. Conscious Channeling, 1996. April 14th, 1996. B. Yes, I have a question concerning the law of responsibility. I am confused by the concept of forgiveness. My experience teaches me that forgiveness has many strings attached to it. Could you give me a higher perspective on forgiveness? Quo I am Quo, and am aware of your query, my brother. To forgive is, shall we say, to give love for whatever has been given to you. Thus, there is no condition other than a relationship and an interaction between entities. The desire to forgive is enough with which to begin. If one places conditions upon the forgiveness, then one is beginning in a fashion which will yet require refinement, for to truly forgive another one must erase all conditions. There is the giving of freedom by removing conditions, the allowing and accepting of free will by removing conditions. The gift freely given is the one with the greatest value, shall we say. Thus, if you are able to wipe the slate clean within your own heart and mind, then you have truly forgiven. There is much of one's own experience at being forgiven that conditions one as to what it is to forgive and to be forgiven. If you feel that you have accepted another's definition that no longer fits that which you wish in your own life pattern, then you are free to construct your own definition and to put it into exercise by applying wherever appropriate. And we are aware that within your illusion there is much opportunity for practice. Channeling Conscious. Channeling 2018, November 17, 2018. Zach, I have one final query, QO. Could you speak as to the law of responsibility as it relates to spiritual gifts and honors JAR's blessings, which one is able to experience, whether transcendent stages or other, what might be considered siddhis? Kuo. I am Kuo, and am aware of your query, my brother. Indeed, each entity within the incarnational pattern provides itself with the opportunity to have these blessings of one nature or another revealed at some point within the incarnative pattern. Many times, however, these blessings are not seen as blessings, but rather as difficulties, as perhaps darkness that cannot be overcome, as liabilities of the physical vehicle which seem to represent disease and distortion. Blessings come in many, many containers, shall we say. Those blessings that are easily recognized, whether they be healing or extrasensory perception, or the ability to open the Blu-ray energy center in inspiration and communication, or to heal. These are those which are most often seen as blessings, and indeed are such. However, every difficulty that is experienced by any entity offers the opportunity to move into a blessed state of balance and realization of the one creator existing within the self. There are indeed no mistakes, my friends. Each of you has been given one or more blessings in a manner in which you may or may not recognize the situation that you find yourself in as the blessing. All blessings indeed carry the law of responsibility as a means by which to assure the self that the greatest attempt is made to give respect and honor and effort to each blessing, be it of seeming light or seeming darkness, in order that the blessing may accomplish, in the life pattern, that for which it was programmed. For many times, entities program the most difficult of situations in order that the greatest blessing may be achieved. And thus, if you give your greatest effort to every situation in which you find yourself, you may find yourself rewarded with a blessing that is beyond your wildest dreams, shall we say. For all that you experience is experienced within an ambience of unity, seeing in your reality as separation, yet experienced at the heart of your being as unity. If you will give the greatest effort of your mind, your body, your spirit, and your emotions to process all of the catalyst that you receive in your daily round of activities, you will find a blessing that is the fruit of this effort. The law of responsibility asks that each entity give the fullest respect and effort to each daily experience, to each entity that one meets, and to the entity that you see in the mirror before you each day. You are all the one creator in disguise. Your incarnation has as its purpose the removing of the disguise that you may see the one in all in every instance of your experience. Channeling Conscious. Channeling. 2021 September 22nd, 2021. Jim Yes, QO, in session 101.8 Ross says, We may only suggest that the honor of propinquity to light carries with it the law of responsibility. What does this mean to the seeker of truth? Kuwo, we are Kuwo. We are aware of the query, my brother. This query is a vast topic as it touches on a central theme that arises in the journey of the seeker, particularly within the third density as the seeker continues upon its path and develops to a certain point at which it begins to manifest and discover information, inspiration, and most basically, light. And in this process of discovery also discovers that such light carries with it an inseparable burden, if you will. That is what has been called the law of responsibility. In most basic terms, we may speak to this law of responsibility as the notion that as an entity becomes aware of its capacity to create and to accept within the creation around it, that this capacity, if not utilized to a certain purity commensurate with the purity of the light which this seeker has discovered, then catalyst is generated to a higher degree to catch the attention of this seeker and to call the seeker to address where this responsibility is not being accepted and utilized. This effect becomes greater and greater upon the path of the seeker as the seeker exercises and refines its will and faith. And at a certain point, this will begin to draw to it more and more opportunities for the seeker to act in service, whether in service to others or service to self. These opportunities will present themselves more frequently and with greater breadth as the seeker draws to it this light and love. This is an important cornerstone for those who wish to approach what has been called adepthood. For while this law of responsibility is always a factor in the life of a seeker, or even an entity in its most early stages of seeking, once an entity becomes aware of its own ability to manifest light and create, the law of responsibility, you may say, takes full effect. The entity at that point may realize that there is nothing within its life that it cannot offer love to or be of service towards. This suggests that seekers who are actively practicing to refine their will, to balance their energy centers, and to manifest love and service, that dedication to this path must also become purer and purer. And such a seeker will necessarily need to maintain a great awareness of potential imbalances within the self, distortions, and particularly those distortions taken upon the seeker from its upbringing within the society about it. This awareness of the distortions developed by an upbringing within a distorted society become ever more important, for an individual may balance the self and clear the self of distortions to a certain degree, and an entity may seem to be balanced and move with ease about the society, offering service where it is requested, yet there is an ever difficult process of examining those things that are nearly universally agreed upon within a society, and determining whether or not these aspects of society that have seeped into the heart of the self are in alignment with the chosen path of service to others or even service to self. And if these deep-seated, widely accepted distortions do not match with the seeker's chosen vibration, then the seeker accepts the responsibility for the society and will begin to generate catalyst for the self that calls the attention more and more to that which will put it at odds with society. We find on your planet at this time among those who are aware of our words and our teachings that this is quite a difficult stage. And we suggest to those who are aware of our words that great care and patience be taken in meditation and examining the self, and that seekers wishing to approach adepthood do not force themselves into a position which they are not yet ready to accept such a responsibility. It is not necessary, my friends, to explore this deeply magical path to be of service and to share love and light upon your planet. The simple work of taking each day and finding the love within it is as admirable as the greatest magical works that require the greatest magical responsibilities. Channeling Conscious. Channeling, 2022, February 2, 2022. When a seeker or a group of seekers, such as this circle, dedicates themselves and rededicates themselves further to their chosen path, such as is done by the choice to expand your channel in service. This is a signal of sorts. It generates a type of light that is attractive and creates a potential for other metaphysical energies or entities and, in general, the light of the Creator that is available to such seekers. This attraction brings with it a level of duty and honor, which involves what we have called in previous contact the law of responsibility. The one known as Carla explored the deep metaphysical implications of serving as a channel for the Confederation of Planets in service to the infinite Creator, and discovered, with alignment to our own perceptions, that dedicating oneself as such a channel is not simply a choice of hobby or side task to be complete in addition to one's regular daily life, but rather such a choice is one that encompasses one's entire livelihood. The choice to serve as a channel and receive and share information and inspiration as we offer it is one that requires constant dedication to that which one desires to receive and to share. We encourage you to consider the heart of your desire to serve in this light, for we believe that you will find, in expanding in your circle of seeking and your circle of channeling, that the light will increase as well, and thus, the law of responsibility will also increase within your lives. It is of great importance for instruments such as yourself to consider what is received and dedicate significant attention to applying it to their life. To fail to do so would risk this new increase of light for your group becoming unstable and affecting the quality and ability of your circle to seek together.
Moving forward, Section 3.10 connects the Law of One's laws together. This section is therefore repeated for continuity. Also, when Ra or other groups mention the Law of One, I believe in this context they are referring to the density of unity. I'll provide more detail in the next video.
Light-love versus love-light definition.
15.22 Questioner. You also said that you offered the Law of One, which is the balancing of love, light, and light, love. Is there any difference between love, light, and light, love?
Ra, I am Ra. This will be the final question of this time or space. There is the same difference between love, light, and light, love, as there is between teach, learning, and learn teaching. Love light is the enabler, the power, the energy giver. Light love is the manifestation which occurs when light has been impressed with love.
Law of love.
3.1 Questioner. Then if an individual is totally informed with respect to the Law of One, and lives and is the Law of One, such things as the building of a pyramid by direct mental effort would be commonplace. Is that what I am to understand? Am I correct?
Ra, I am Ra. You are incorrect in that there is a distinction between the individual power through the Law of One and the combined, or societal memory complex, mind, body, spirit understanding of the Law of One. In the first case, only the one individual, purified of all flaws, could move a mountain. In the case of mass understanding of unity, each individual may contain an acceptable amount of distortion, and yet the mass mind could move mountains. The progress is normally from the understanding which you now seek to a dimension of understanding which is governed by the laws of love, and which seeks the laws of light. Those who are vibrating with the law of light seek the law of one. Those who vibrate with the law of one seek the law of foreverness. We cannot say what is beyond this dissolution of the unified self with all that there is, for we still seek to become all that there is, and still are we Ra. Thus our paths go onward.
27th 10th Questioner. This then being the first distortion of the Law of One, which I am assuming is the law of intelligent infinity, from all other, correction. All other distortions which are the total experience of the creation spring from this. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is both correct and incorrect. In your illusion, all experience springs from the law of free will, or the way of confusion. In another sense, which we are learning, the experiences are this distortion.
27th of November questioner. I will have to think about that and ask questions on it in the next session. So I will go on to what you have given me as the second distortion, which is the distortion of love. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
27.12 questioner. I would like for you to define love in its sense as the second distortion.
Ra, I am Ra. This must be defined against the background of intelligent infinity, or unity, or the one creator, with the primal distortion of free will. The term love then may be seen as the focus, the choice of attack, the type of energy of an extremely, shall we say, high order, which causes intelligent energy to be formed from the potential of intelligent infinity in just such and such a way. This then may be seen to be an object rather than an activity by some of your peoples, and the principle of this extremely strong energy focus being worshipped as the creator instead of unity, or oneness, from which all loves emanate.
27.13 questioner. Is there a manifestation of love that we could call vibration?
Ra, I am Ra. Again, we reach semantic difficulties. The vibration, or density, of love, or understanding, is not a term used in the same sense as the second distortion, love. The distortion love being the great activator and primal co-creator of various creations using intelligent infinity. The vibration love being that density in which those who have learned to do an activity called loving, without significant distortion, then seek the ways of light or wisdom. Thus, in vibratory sense, love comes into light. In the sense of the activity of unity in its free will, love uses light and has the power to direct light in its distortions. Thus, vibratory complexes recapitulate in reverse the creation in its unity, thus showing the rhythm or flow of the great heartbeat, if you will use this analogy.
27.14 questioner. I will make a statement that I have extracted from the physics of Dewey Larson, which may or may not be close to what we are trying to explain. Larson says that all is motion, which we can take as vibration, and that vibration, which is pure vibration and is not physical in any way, or in any form, or in any density, that vibration, by first product of that vibration, is what we call the photon, particle of light. I was trying to make an analogy between this physical solution and the concept of love and light. Is this close to the concept of love creating light, or not?
Ra, I am Ra. You are correct.
27.15 questioner. Then I will expand a bit more on this concept. We have the infinite vibration of love, which can occur, I am assuming, at varying frequencies, if this has a meaning in this. I would assume that it begins at one basic frequency. Does this have any meaning? Am I making sense? Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. Each love, as you term the prime movers, comes from one frequency, if you wish to use this term. This frequency is unity. We would perhaps liken it rather to a strength than a frequency, this strength being infinite, the finite qualities being chosen by the particular nature of this primal movement.
27.16 questioner. Then this vibration, which is, for lack of better understanding, which we would call pure motion, it is pure love. It is not. There is nothing that is yet condensed, shall we say, to form any type or density of illusion. This love then creates, by this process of vibration, a photon as we call it, which is the basic particle of light. This photon then, by added vibrations and rotations, further condenses into particles of the densities, the various densities that we experience. Is this correct?
Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
Law of light?
3.1 questioner. Then if an individual is totally informed with respect to the law of one, and lives and is the law of one, such things as the building of a pyramid by direct mental effort would be commonplace. Is that what I am to understand? Am I correct?
Ra, I am Ra. You are incorrect in that there is a distinction between the individual power through the law of one and the combined, or societal memory complex mind, body, spirit understanding of the law of one. In the first case, only the one individual, purified of all flaws, could move a mountain. In the case of mass understanding of unity, each individual may contain an acceptable amount of distortion, and yet the mass mind could move mountains. The progress is normally from the understanding which you now seek to a dimension of understanding which is governed by the laws of love, and which seeks the laws of light. Those who are vibrating with the law of light seek the law of one. Those who vibrate with the law of one seek the law of foreverness. We cannot say what is beyond this dissolution of the unified self with all that there is, for we still seek to become all that there is, and still are we Ra. Thus our paths go onward, channeling conscious. Channeling 2018, May 26, 2018. Gary. QO. Is there a correlation between body, mind, and spirit, and the first three distortions? That is, body with the third distortion, mind with the second distortion, and spirit with the first distortion? Quo. I am QO, and am aware of your query, my friend. The correlation is not a one-to-one kind of correlation where you can easily see the similarities or possible likeness of one to the other. The first distortion of free will is that which could mostly be correlated, as we would see it, with what you would call the spirit, for it is that which is all, which has made a choice to become more aware of that which it is. The second distortion of the love is that which we would correlate most closely with what you call the mind, for the love of the Logos is that which is consciousness itself and begins to form the creation that will allow the first distortion to be fulfilled in knowledge of itself. The third distortion of light would be correlated with what you would call the body in our estimation, for the light is that which forms all things, all that is created as a field of being full of forms of life that are invested with the desire to grow, to be, to seek, to become. Thus, there is a correlation that is somewhat apparent upon close examination.
The Law of Foreeverness. 3.1 Questioner. Then if an individual is totally informed with respect to the law of one, and lives and is the law of one, such things as the building of a pyramid by direct mental effort would be commonplace. Is that what I am to understand? Am I correct?
Ra. I am Ra. You are incorrect in that there is a distinction between the individual power through the law of one and the combined, or societal memory complex mind-body, spirit understanding of the law of one. In the first case, only the one individual, purified of all flaws, could move a mountain. In the case of mass understanding of unity, each individual may contain an acceptable amount of distortion, and yet the mass mind could move mountains. The progress is normally from the understanding which you now seek to a dimension of understanding which is governed by the laws of love, and which seeks the laws of light. Those who are vibrating with the law of light seek the law of one. Those who vibrate with the law of one seek the law of foreverness. We cannot say what is beyond this dissolution of the unified self with all that there is, for we still seek to become all that there is, and still are we Ra. Thus our paths go onward. The plan and the status of the plan. Channeling conscious channeling. 1973. December 18, 1973. We of the Confederation of Planets in the service of the Infinite Creator are living as closely to the plan as we possibly can. We do this because we know it to be the only logical and rational way of living. To divorce yourself from the plan is only to confound the true workings of nature. Your people at present are totally unaware of such a plan. Your scientists ignore it. They are extremely interested in plans of their own. Unfortunately, their plans do not follow the plan of the Creator. Therefore, they waste much of their time and energy and build devices that have no real valuable purpose. They are transient, I can assure you. Your scientists should realize that there is a purpose to the creation that far surpasses what they suspect. they should avail themselves to the purpose in meditation. Then they would find that they would begin to understand the plan, and thereby they would be able to use their knowledge to build within the plan, not as they do now, with no heed at all to the truth, and with plans of their own which have no relationship to truth. Your governments make the same error. They do not work within the plan. They are not aware of the plan. They attempt to make law, but their laws do not work. They appear to have some value, but very shortly, much strife is generated, and the result is war. They do not understand that the reason for this strife is that they have ignored the natural plan of creation, the natural order of things, and the law of the Creator that devised this. Your leaders should avail yourself in meditation to truth, as we do. We are aware that at this particular time it is impossible for your scientists and your leaders to do such a thing, for they are in the vast depths of slumber and cannot at this time be awakened, for the most part. There are only a few, many too few, who are very lightly slumbering. It will be necessary, therefore, to concern yourself with those whom you contact in any and all walks of life, the ones who are lightly slumbering, the ones who will seek on their own after they have been made aware of the possibility of seeking. It is our plan to alert as many of these people as possible, so that when it becomes obvious to your leaders and to your scientists that we are real and we are what they suspect that we might be, there will be a sufficient number of awakened entities on your planet for some form of communication to take place between those who are already awake and those who are lightly slumbering in the future. For as time passes, those who are in the depths of slumber now will begin to awake. Those who you cannot contact at all now will begin to awake. It will be a self-generating process so that large numbers of your people will be given the truth. It is a very, very big task. It will be up to you and those like you to help us in carrying this out. We have said before that we would very much like to land upon your surface and contact your peoples directly, but we have explained that this is not at all feasible. I am aware of many planets such as this one that have gone through a cycle of awakening. Many planets made this transition with considerable ease because they were following the plan. Unfortunately, this planet has lagged in the natural scheme of things. This is what you might refer to as a borderline case. There will be those of your people who make the graduation and those who don't. This is not always the case with all planets. In some instances, all individuals are ready for the graduation that you now approach. In some unfortunate instances, none are ready. In your particular place, it is a combination of both instances. Therefore, do not be dismayed if your ideas are totally rejected by some, for this is to be expected. And this is the major reason that we cannot come among you, for it would be a direct violation of one of the laws of which I earlier spoke. Due to their conditions, it is necessary for those of you who would help us, who are on the surface of your planet, to help us. We request that you meditate. This is all that is necessary. This is all the help that we need, because if you meditate, then you will know what to do. And this is all the help that we need, or all the help that we would desire, for this is also part of the plan. It has been a privilege to be with you this evening. I am Hatan. I will leave you in his love and in his light. Adonai. Adonai Vasu.
Conclusion.
Very heartfelt thanks if you stayed until the end. There are no accidents. There's obviously something resonating with your spirit and soul, and I'll tackle these in the next video. As for this video, I could talk about the categories of law. For example, man's, God's, the creators. I could talk about the ones you follow and why. Basically because there are bad consequences if you don't. But the law of one laws are different, aren't they? And even if you say the law of one laws don't make sense to you as laws, don't they just make sense to your sensibilities, to your spirit, to your soul? I hope so. The law of confusion or the law of free will, the veil of forgetting, the law of responsibility. Now that's a big one, right? The law of love, the law of light, and the law of foreverness. We have no initial control over the law of confusion or free will, or initially the veil of forgetting. But to overcome the veil of forgetting is definitely possible. To live the law of love and the law of light is also definitely possible, and you may be living these laws. Even the law of confusion can be overcome, and not by trampling upon an other self's free will. As man and the God's laws have consequences, so does the Creator's laws have consequences. But these laws aren't well known, and so their consequences aren't known, and frankly are a bit challenging to believe. Well, I'll definitely be sharing more in the next video.
I hope you will continue with us on this fundamental journey of ascension. Until next time, I will go in and I will leave you in the love and the light, the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator, Adonai.